Hello! I'm trying something new, and I'm hoping that it will carry on towards a whole series, but I was thinking of needing an extra editing project. I just figured I wanted to create something for myself for just a possibility of being able to put something on a regular schedule. I just think that would be more fun as a challenge for myself. It's basically just going to be like a list of random observations in a very short form sort of content to see what just kind of comes about in observations and thoughts and all that sort of stuff. First one that I thought of. I think if I had to listen to a score for 24 hours and not get tired of it, I think one of my first instincts was the Tinkerbell score, which I think is like severely underrated because people think about the soundtrack for some reason, even though the soundtrack barely is used within the movie. But people think about the songs rather than just the score itself. And it's so much easier to obtain the soundtrack than it is to obtain the score. You don't even want to know the things I've had to go through in order to obtain a physical copy of just the Tinkerbell score. Not only do I think listening to it for 24 hours wouldn't annoy me, I still think 24 hours wouldn't be enough. I still think it's just like a perfect score. Side tangent, I think it's also one of the Disney universes that I would like to live in. I think if someone were to ask me, hey, what's a Disney universe that you would like to live in, I think Pixie Hollow is one of the first ones that come into my mind. I think the production team did such a good job curating a world that is so like immersively detailed for a project that was going to be more than what it turned out to be. I think it's just absolutely perfect. I think it's a great universe. I mean, who doesn't want to live in Pixie Hollow? Anyways, my family and I were going to dinner the other day, and we were walking past an Italian restaurant on the way over there, and while I peeked inside, I saw two TVs in the main dining area. One of them is just general TV, probably sports or entertainment or whatever. And then the other one, what I saw was a phone ratio of the screen on the TV. So it made me think it was either some short form content or TikToks that was being continuously played. And it made me wonder, I've seen them before. I've seen them in bowling alleys. I've seen them, I believe, in arcades. It's at the roller skating rink that is local to me. And I'm wondering in my mind, first off, how many businesses have decided to implement short form based content as part of their entertainment on the screens that they have, you know, when you go into restaurants, or again, arcades, bars. And is it going to be something that catches on so much that it becomes the norm? Are we straying away from cable? Yes. But are we straying away from cable to streaming sites or to short form content? What I figured out through some research was that the restaurant that I saw and the screen at my roller skating rink both use Atmosphere TV. Did a little bit of digging, figured out that this is a business that basically has a streaming subscription for you to subscribe to so that you can have short form based content running in your businesses. So I believe this is the big one that is used. And so I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that Atmosphere TV and Chive TV are intertwined in some shape, way, or form. I do have a lot of Aquariuses in my life that play D&D, and that made me wonder how many nerds are in my life that just so happen to play D&D, how popular is D&D, or if playing D&D should just come with the trait of being an Aquarius, or is being an Aquarius just a trait of playing D&D? Which way does it go? Isn't it interesting? If you lived in this kind of scenario, you knew. If you lived in a neighborhood where you had neighbors next door in a typical outside house sort of setting, not an apartment or anything, the days that you would play with your neighbors or your friends would be completely spontaneous. There was a part in your life when you would have play dates without having to plan said play dates. There was no need to schedule. There was no need to set anything in advance. You would walk outside, you would see that the other person was outside, and you would decide right then and there to play for an hour. When did that stop? There was a screenshot on TikTok that I saw, which ended up in one of my Instagram posts recently, that I think is haunting me more than it needs to. It's the pyramid for the hierarchy of needs, and it's that meme where like something gets crossed out and all you need is this one particular thing. And the thing that is in there says, when it's not nothing, but it's definitely something. That's messing me up in the head more than it needs to be. Don't leave me on in whatever my delusion is thinking is something or nothing. It's not helpful. And yet I still want to print out a picture of it and just hold it like right by my wall next to my bed, just to really run the delusion into the ground. My sister the other day reminded me of a paper that I wrote in my Psych of Women class, which, yes, is a real thing, which was a couple of semesters ago. And I thought I would read a little bit of it because I thought it was kind of funny about what I decided to do my paper on. The topic itself was about biases in children's media, and so they asked for us to pick 2 TV shows aimed for children, trying to keep it towards younger children rather than late elementary school children. And the TV shows were meant to represent some sort of bias that was normal to the point of being practically mundane. So the 2 that I picked that defied those expectations were Bluey and Octonauts. Yes, I wrote a paper on Octonauts. That's like my friend saying that they wrote a paper about Barbie and the Three Musketeers. My weird one is on Octonauts, for sure. Basically, long story short, it was about the way that gender norms are presented based off of color, pronouns, and like occupational roles. Here's what I have. This is specifically just for the Octonauts segment. Octonauts is an educational show that focuses on the knowledge of marine life and ecosystems. The personified animal characteristics work in a lab under the sea to discover creatures, rescue them if necessary, and expand a general knowledge of the ocean. Majority of the characters are men, and all except one group of characters are explicitly of the gender binary. The Vegemals, creatures that resemble a shape of turnips, don't speak English and are presented as men or women. They all have been shown to use singular they/them pronouns. It is important to note that these creatures aren't part of the main character group, so they're not featured in majority of the episodes. Many of the characters in the show are colored to be accurate to their respective animals. The roles that the characters have in Octonauts are of the more traditional type with the men, but not necessarily with the women. Tweak, a green rabbit, is a mechanical engineer, and majority of her jobs are repairing things in the lab. She also invents contraptions and maintains the vehicles in the engine room. Her occupation is rare and important for kids to see, especially when many engineering fields are dominated by men. Another character that's interesting to spotlight is Peso, a penguin who's a medic and breaks a bit of gender stereotypes. His traits include being nervous, short, gentle, and has a higher male voice than his friends. In retrospect, I should have just said tenor voice. I just feel like that just makes more sense. While he is a medic, many of his traits mold him to be a kinder, almost feminine type of doctor. The other 2 male main characters are more extreme in their masculinity. The intelligent captain and the cat pirate who's the flyboy. I literally put that in quotation marks. So to have the 3rd man be not as heavy in masculinity, the contrast shows more than if he was the sole main character. Which, shout out Peso, he's literally my favorite character, and I wonder how much that says about me. So an unreliable narrator is defined by a narration being dramatized, over-exaggerated, and the admission of certain events. In my mind, if you are writing a journal or a diary entry, and you are twisting the events that you are writing down to be dramatized, over-exaggerated, or you're omitting certain events, even if you know that no one's going to read it, even if you know that there is that sake of privacy there between you and the page, are you still considered an unreliable narrator if no one knows what the true event was? If someone eventually finds your diary and your journal and reads everything, do they have to assume that everything should be trusted from what you had put down? Or do they have to admit that there might potentially be a bias within those entries if there is a potential for you to be an unreliable narrator? This is also making me wonder just how many people actually over-exaggerate or omit certain events in their journals or their diaries if you know that no one's going to be reading it. Even forgetting that if you die and someone might read it later. If you are under the belief that no one's ever going to read this, are you still 100% truthful with what you write down in there? Anyway, that is all I have for this week. Hopefully, I get to continue these each week. So here's to next week when whatever day I decide to post the schedule. So, see ya.